What is up, and welcome in to this. I can't say another special episode of Motor City Roulette because we said that last week. But I'm your host, M. Brown H21 Mike. Got my co-host Zach over here. I'm always backwards, and we got a special guest with us, straight from the heart of Michigan. I believe you're in Michigan right now, CJ, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. We're going to talk obviously a lot of Lions tonight. We're gonna put this season to bed with the Lions talk, obviously a little Red Wings talk, and then we'll talk about a little college football, kind of like last episode. But for those of you guys watching at home, I didn't know how that intro went. We were kind of in and out leggy. Zach's having a little technical difficulties here right now, so hopefully that came out all right. But Zach, how we doing tonight?
Oh yeah, doing good. Yeah, so I hope that came out to the public all right, that intro video. But I didn't see a lick of it, but I've seen it 100 times. So doing all good. Holiday season wrapped up, NFL season wrapped up. Got the little bro CJ here. It's gonna be a fun episode. We're gonna wrap up the Lions and maybe talk about a little off season, but overall just happy to go out with a dub, honestly.
Absolutely. And like Zach said, CJ is his brother here. So we've been trying to, Zach's been mentioning there, he was going to jump on here and there. So glad we finally get to get him on, especially after this game that we just, witnessed, and hopefully send Aaron Rodgers to his resting place. But CJ, man, thanks for jumping on. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I feel great all week. I've been saying to myself, all year I get to picture Jared Goff going into victory formation in Lambeau. So
it's a beautiful
that
thing.
little image is great. Yeah, it's been a good week.
Absolutely. So we quickly kind of discussed a few things off air, kind of quickly. A lot of media coming out of the Green Bay locker room. We saw some Lazard comments where he pretty much said he's not coming back. I heard a few things about Rodgers saying, he metaphored it about some riding a carousel and being, sometimes you're on your last ride and yada, yada, yada. So before we get into all that, guys, the game, we got flexed Sunday night. I guess before I get ahead of myself, what did you guys think about Seattle, the Seattle Rams game? You guys have a chance to watch that, or did you guys just scroll through ESPN updating that?
I'll let CJ go first because I didn't watch it.
I watched. I think I watched the beginning of the first half, and then I watched the end of it into overtime. And my overall thoughts were that it was kind of an ugly game to watch.
Oh yeah,
both teams were playing pretty awful, and obviously we're rooting for the Rams in that game, and they just kept shooting themselves in the foot. So it was not a fun game to watch. I'll definitely say that.
Yeah, I mean, I was like spent after that game, before the Lions game even happened. The whole, Zach and I talked about it last week. The whole scenario, the way that it lined up is, we hold the Rams draft pick. Here we are rooting for the Rams to win. Right. Then, the field goal goes into overtime, and it's like, you got to be kidding me. So basically, as the Lions are getting ready to kick off, right before they're kicking off, they finally know the fate. But then to reciprocate it, I don't know if you guys saw, the NFL, there was a lot of NFL, a lot of players rooting for the Lions. Obviously, then as Seattle won that game, Seattle was rooting for the Lions to win. So the whole thing, the way it came out, it was, like I said, I don't want to be one of those Lions fans, but that was our championship. I can go to bed this season and be happy. But overall, Zach and I were up and down quite a bit on where we thought we were going to finish, but I think a lot to build on. Now I think the expectations are extremely high next year, so we may get those Lions slappies that we saw early in the season, those fans. But overall, watching that game, did you guys think, Zach? I'll go to you, and then CJ. I know we talked about it. I think you had Green Bay winning it late, essentially, but
yeah,
basically the flow of the game, because I felt like even in that 2-minute draw, I was like, oh my God, if it was the same old Lions, we wouldn't be able to run out the clock. And then Aaron Rodgers, the way he was just airing it out against our defensive backs and getting the penalties, I figured right there that writing was on the wall. Did you kind of feel like it was building for that?
Yeah, I'm trying to get out of the same old Lions mentality, because it was such a, I don't want to say ugly, but it was not a fun game to watch in the first half. And in my head, I was like, this we blew our chance. They got 9 points. The first time we beat them, it was like 15-9. We should have jumped out to the lead in the first half. So I'm thinking, it's tough luck here. But the second half turned out much better, and I think the Packers shot themselves in the foot, honestly.
Oh, multiple times.
Yeah, with the penalties at the end, because I don't know. I still think the NFL wanted Green Bay to win, but if there was any of that sort of thing that played into this game, the NFL wanting Green Bay to win, it all went out the window when the guy shoved the trainer, and it's almost like now you're almost doing anything you can to keep him out of the playoffs.
Yeah. CJ, what did you think about the game? I felt like it was an emotional roller coaster, but did you feel that after that, once we were in that 2-minute drive, did you kind of feel that, oh man, things can slip away, or no way, man, we're putting it to bed?
Honestly, I kind of could have gone back and forth because you're going against Rodgers. So you think we've seen this movie 10 different times with Rodgers, especially at the end of the season. But the way the momentum of the game had gone, and even though the Packers had shot themselves in the foot a few times, so we caught some breaks there. But I wouldn't say that I was thinking, oh, we're going to stop them. Like, we're definitely going to stop them. But I don't know. It just felt different. It felt different than the prior years where Rodgers has done that to us. I'll say that.
I just feel like, obviously there was a lot of talk all week. Rodgers kind of downplayed it towards the end. But this team, this is what I told Zach, this is – I felt like, okay, if the Rams won, that would give us the edge to really, really put it on Green Bay. And I think Zach and I were both kind of like, the Packers will probably win if Seattle wins. But this team came out, and I don't feel like the letdown literally minutes before kickoff really factored into a lot of things. And I think they really rebounded well based off the scenarios. I didn't realize Okudah wasn't, he was out for the entire game. So then, we've got, again, in our secondary outside of Okudah, I give Will Harris so much slander every week, and then the rest of these guys, and it's kind of plug and play. That's the one thing, I'll talk about it later, but our secondary, that's definitely something that we have to address. But after the game, getting the win, knowing, like I said, we knocked Rodgers out, having the ability to really build on next year, being one of the teams that has the most cap space. I feel like I was thinking about the receiving core when I was on my way home today. Like, you got to do everything you can to keep this receiving core together, because in the beginning of the year when Shark was hurt, I thought he was done with the Lions. He was on I think maybe a 1-year deal. I know Josh Reynolds re-signed in the offseason. I don't know how much longer that was, but these guys are going to be cheap, and they played great. There was no animosity towards each other. But I feel like, we've got so much money. I feel like our offensive line, we got to shore up. We didn't even have Big V all season. We pretty much haven't had him the past 2 years. So I think that's somebody you can cut bait with. But overall, I'm really happy with the way things turned out. So I don't know if CJ can hear us right now because he was commenting in here. But Zach, do you feel? Going into the offseason, we always talk about this. Do you feel like there's a certain area of guys that we have right now that you have to keep, or do you feel like you have to, any of these starters right now that you want to make sure that they're back next year to kind of build on next year?
For me, the must is Jamal Williams. I hear what you're saying about the receiving core, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying. But to me, he's just the kind of guy that you want, especially for a team that's building and trying to gain momentum. Just his attitude around the team, to me, he's a must keep. I don't know what his contract looks like. I don't know if he's signed through next year or what the deal is there. But I think he's my lion right now.
Yeah, I definitely think. The way that, and this goes to show. This is pretty much everything that we've talked about all season. The way that Swift was being utilized, bringing him back with fresh legs. The fact that Jamal Williams was just able to pound the ball all season, even though, there was a couple weeks ago when he had that knee injury, I thought he might miss some time. He got hit on the sidelines. And then obviously we see Swift go down, which I figured that injury, you guys talked about it earlier with one of their guys pushing the trainer. But I felt like it was one of those things that might have, knocked Swift out and passed, but I think he came back, responded well. But you mentioned it earlier, the whole trainer situation based off of, that game, and then what happened on the Monday night before. I mean, they don't coincide, but I feel like that situation just added more light to it. Like, what was your thoughts on that? Was that like, I just felt like that was probably one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. And as much as you don't like listening to, I think it was Collinsworth or whoever it was, like he said, every time I broadcast the game, I say, man, I've never seen that before. And he goes, that was one of those things. Like, you ever see a situation like that where why does a player physically have to push a trainer? And then you see the other guy kind of come and like put his chest into him and like block, like that whole situation, especially based off of this past Monday night. I mean, what were your thoughts on that? I think everybody's kind of on the same page, but I mean, Zach, what do you think about all that?
I honestly didn't see it when it happened. They were talking about the flag and then they showed the replay and he even said it himself. I can't remember the guy's name. He's just a Green Bay Packer as far as I'm concerned, but he said he was like, it was the dumbest thing. I don't know what I was thinking. My emotions got the best.
I think he was a rookie or second-year player. So
yeah, and I understand that. Like he's in a heated moment, right? And he's and probably some Lions guys in his face pissing him off, and he just sees blue and he shoves him, and he's not thinking about what's going on around him. Then that's not an excuse. That doesn't excuse what he did, especially like what you said with what happened the previous week with DeMar Hamlin. It was just a bonehead move. He just wasn't thinking, and I don't think he was like trying to be like, don't heal this guy or don't do your job or anything like that. He was just trying to push a blue shirt, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, CJ, I don't know. You back with us? You here? We're talking about the whole trainer situation, and again, it's not a lot to talk about because I think everybody's kind of on the same page. But when you saw that, I mean, were you just kind of like, what the hell is this guy doing?
Yeah, I was very shocked. In any game, I would have been shocked, but the fact that it was Packers against Lions, I was definitely. I'd never seen that in a game before. I've never seen a player push someone who's not a player.
I don't think I've seen that either.
Yeah, it was definitely an awful look for Green Bay and for that guy.
So, we talked about this. I think Green Bay, I think that was their second game that they were held in the first half without a touchdown. I think the other one was against us earlier in the season. We're a Lion, or not a Lion show, we're a Detroit show, but I want to talk a little bit about the Rodgers, or I mean, I guess about the Packers. We see, out in Arizona right now, they got rid of their coach. Sounds like they're going to strip down the team. Maybe a little bit. They're willing to deal DeAndre Hopkins. They talked about that today. Kyler Murray, there was always some kind of turmoil there. But in a situation like this, I feel like, they drafted Jordan Love to be the next heir apparent. He's played sparingly. I don't necessarily think that he's looked great, but I don't think at that position, like, you can really show a lot in spot starts. I feel like you need to have a little consistency. But like, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that? And I know hate is a strong word, and I use it loosely for Rodgers because he's one of those people that I just despise, and I talk about it openly all the time. Do you guys think this is the last of Rodgers, or maybe just with Green Bay or in the league? Do you think I just feel like he's one of those guys that's just so arrogant and so cocky that he's just like, screw it.
Yeah, I would guess if I was to bet on it, I would say it's probably his last as a Packer. His contract is up, yeah.
I thought he was.
I don't know.
Like I said,
I think he just signed an extension.
I thought he signed the extension when they got rid of Devontae Adams.
Okay, yeah. So I guess he would have to retire, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Then I don't know. I feel like he's the type that would be tough to walk away from the game, but at the same time, if he's offered like an immediate TV gig, he seems like the guy that would jump at that right away. So, I don't know. But if he wasn't under contract, I would say he'd go play somewhere else. I think he's sick and tired of Green Bay.
Yeah.
Like we all
are. Go ahead, CJ.
I don't know. And like you said, like I'm a little biased too, because I can't stand him either, but I don't know how. And it's not just this season. Like the way that they've gone out, I think like 3 years in a row now, it's been ugly losses in Lambeau Field. I don't know how you come back from that other than next season, like winning a Super Bowl. Like that's what he'd have to do to redeem himself in Green Bay. And I don't see that happening with the team that they have.
It's just wild because like the whole situation is like Devontae Adams gets shipped out. The only reason he's in Vegas is because Derek Carr. Well, Derek Carr has probably seen his last start there.
Yeah.
So Devontae Adams is thinking to himself, like, what the hell did I do? Well, the biggest surprise to me was when Devontae got shipped out that Rodgers signed an extension. But now he's looking at himself. I just feel like every move that he makes is like calculated, but I'm like looking at myself like, this is probably the dumbest thing that these guys did. Like, are you kidding me? Yeah, granted, Devontae had a great personal year. He set the franchise record in Vegas, but I mean, what's that really matter? These guys are not sniffing the playoffs. The NFC North is only getting better and better. I mean, you talk about Justin Fields. I mean, a generational talent, not because I'm a Buckeye, but you see what the guy can do. But are the Bears willing to bury this dude in their ground and not put talent around him? That's one of those things. I think Minnesota will still be around for a little bit. I felt like the past couple years, I just couldn't look at Kirk Cousins as a starting quarterback, or not a starting quarterback, but just like a playoff caliber quarterback. And now it's like you look at him, it's like he just gets it done. And then I feel like Green Bay's the one like steady fall, and everybody's getting younger and kind of on the upswing. So it'll be interesting to see kind of in this division what happens. But guys, no playoffs. That was our playoff episode last week. I mentioned.
Wait, did you? I meant to bring this up when we were talking about Rodgers, and I forgot when I was talking. Did you see the exchange between Rodgers and Jameson Williams at the end of the game?
I was going to ask. Yes, but he kind of casually asked about the jersey.
Yeah, and he's like, I got to keep this one. Like,
and I'm thinking like he's.
What other reason are you? Yeah, what other reason are you keeping a Week 18 L to Detroit?
Did you see? Did you see what Rodgers said in his press conference after the game about that comment?
No, what did he say?
One of the reporters said, like cameras caught you saying this to the Lions rookie. Like, what do you have to say about that? And he said that when they played in Ford Field earlier this year, he had promised Williams that he would give him a jersey. So Jameson Williams, when they play in Lambeau, goes to ask for a jersey. Yeah. Rodgers denies him that. And he just said in his press conference this week after the game, he said, some games are just special. Like, you just want to hold on to the jersey, like Week 18 at Lambeau. I just want to hold on to that jersey. And he gave a really vague reason, and it just didn't make much sense. Like, you don't want to hold on to a jersey of a loss at the end of the season.
Yeah, to a division rival that kicked you out of the playoffs. Like,
yeah,
it's just wild seeing these guys like him, and of course, like I always kind of allude to like fantasy purposes. I think Zach, you said maybe in one of your leagues you had Tom Brady. Tom Brady struggled all season, pretty much sucked all season, and then you get to the point where like it doesn't matter, or you're out of the playoffs or something like that, fantasy wise, and Tom Brady's just lighting it up.
Yeah,
and it's like okay. And he's going strong. And then you see like Rodgers kind of struggling. And we're seeing like this turning of the guard, the young guns coming up. And it's great to see. But one thing, talking about young guns, Kirby Joseph, man, I love this kid. I mean, he could have had 3 picks that game this past week. He actually had 2. One got called back. The one he dropped. But, those guys had some tough words for Rodgers, basically saying that, they heard what Rodgers said, and Kirby Joseph pretty much said that, same old Lions, blah, blah, blah. He goes, whether you leave or not, he goes, if you leave, you're probably gonna be a Hall of Fame player. He goes, but if you come back, he's like, I'm gonna get my picks. I'm gonna get more picks. You're talking about a rookie. I just feel like on a lot of those bombs, basically all they were doing is looking for the pass interference, because that last one that kind of sealed it, Rodgers just kind of flipped the ball up in the air and didn't even pay attention to the safety. And I feel like those guys have really grown, the fact that he's coming in for Tracy Walker and playing. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in that secondary. Maybe him and Tracy Walker paired back there will be a nice little pairing of ball hawks. But overall, is there a rookie, and you can say Aiden Hutchinson. CJ, I'll start with you. Is there a rookie that this year that either played to where you thought he was going to be or just well above his means? Because I feel like we were loaded defensively, especially with rookies.
Hutchinson was definitely started out really slow for like the first almost 8 or 9 games. Like, he had that game against Washington that was awesome, but outside of that, he just wasn't doing much in terms of QB pressures. But then at the end of the season, especially in that Green Bay game at the end of the season, Hutchinson looked awesome. But I think my favorite rookie, just because he came out of nowhere, was Houston on the other side of the D-line. I love Houston. The fact, 8 sacks in 6 games or something?
Yes.
And you watch him sack. He's good with him because he wasn't supposed to be a starter, but looks, and he's a 6th round. I'd say it's definitely he had in the second half of the season, but I'd say Houston.
Absolutely. I like that call there. Zach, who you got, defensive, offense, anybody that really stood out to you that maybe kind of even stood out a little more? I know I always ask you this with the Wings, but for the Lions here, rookie that really stood out to you.
Well, I watched Hard Knocks. I know you didn't watch Hard Knocks, but I know CJ watched Hard Knocks.
I'm going to have to do it now.
So I already had a little bit of bias towards Rodrigo. Love that kid, but I would say Aiden Hutchinson grew on me. Just because he came from Michigan, and I was kind of indifferent, and I was more of on the conservative side of it. Is he really worth the pick that we got him at? But also at the same time, he's a Lion, so I want him to be great. And he played, like CJ said, so well down the stretch, and you could tell he was growing already as a player throughout his first, his rookie season. So promising, and I'm a Hutch guy going forward.
I agree. I mean, there's a lot. I already talked about Kirby Joseph. I think he's one of those guys that brought a lot of life to that secondary, a lot of spunk. He was able to lay the wood, then he was able to, play kind of ball hawk out there. But overall, I think that's what I told Zach, I think last episode, like, hey, we're winning. We're putting a run together. My wife sat down. She's like, you're really going to like stay up and watch this game? I'm like, it's not like it's a long game. She goes, every time I talk to you, like the Lions, like I'm always like, who's winning? You're like, the Lions are losing. I said, well, that was like the first half of the season. She goes, oh, what? The second half of the season changed? And I said, actually, it was like two totally different seasons. Like literally, you're talking like I said, I couldn't even explain it to her. Like it was like for real. Like, and she didn't understand it. I was like, and she's like, so what? You're cheering for a 500 team? I said, no. I said, we were one game above 500 this season. So definitely, but we did that with young talent. We took a leap and again, we go back to Aubrey Pleasant being fired. And I feel like when that happened, this defense came to life. Granted, they still gave up a record number of yards, but I feel like QB pressures is different things, the looks, and maybe Zach and I kind of talked about that. That's why Campbell kind of came down on him, because he wasn't following through with the game plan. So maybe they cut that guy out, and here we are now that there's a decent game plan being called, and yeah, we're giving up a lot of yards, but here we are. We got a lot of young guys playing. So with that being said, you guys see the news now, which it was kind of inevitable. It doesn't mean anything right now, but I believe the Colts reached out to Ben Johnson and what's his name on Aaron Glenn. Yeah. Thoughts on that? I mean, I guess young coaching staff, that's kind of what you're going to have regardless. But I mean, sometimes you see guys like Eric Bieniemy and stuff with KC that get these calls all the time. It's it's just kind of one of those things like, hey, we're going to test the water, see. Or do you guys think they've done enough in their first year to actually land a gig? CJ, I'll go to you if you can hear.
Yeah, I definitely think Johnson could get a job. I could definitely see a team, especially in that, because his play calling down the stretch in that Green Bay game and prime time, everyone saw it was so well. I could definitely see
play,
yeah, I could see some teams saying like, yeah, let's go with this guy, but I don't know if there's a job. And obviously, if you're a coordinator, you want to take a head coaching job. That's like the top job to get. But I don't know if he would want to take any of the jobs, especially Houston. I don't know who would want to go coach Houston right now, because they fire a coach after one season, 2 years in a row. So I don't know about Aaron Glenn. I think Aaron Glenn's really tied to Dan Campbell. I don't know if he should get a job right now, but I could definitely see Johnson getting one, and I wouldn't want to see him go.
Yeah, Zach, I think both these guys are definitely calibers. I think they still need to maybe season a little bit. And I do think Glenn definitely is tied to Campbell. Ben Johnson, I guess I don't know his backstory, but Zach, what do you think about these two guys? Do you think maybe they're just kind of getting the interview process through to kind of get acquainted with it? You expect them back for the season, this upcoming season?
That's a good point. I didn't consider them just trying to get their feet wet in the interview process. That could be something. More so probably for Ben Johnson than AG, but I would agree with CJ. I think he's earned it, Johnson specifically, but would hate to see him go, especially with the steam that we're picking up on offense. well the offense is clicking, and I think what he means to Goff's confidence, and especially with the way Goff played this year, but also for Ben Johnson, his confidence. I would hate to see him go somewhere like Houston, like CJ said, or somewhere that's just not going to set him up to succeed, and then it kills his confidence as a coach, and he's thinking, I should have just stayed in Detroit for a couple more years because obviously that's what we want. So I would hope it's what you said. Like he's just trying to figure out the interviews, trying to see what other programs are about, and at the end of the day, he'll come back for Detroit for at least another season, at least.
Absolutely. So CJ, Zach, and I have talked quite a bit throughout the season about the draft and different things. We got a lot of cap space. Going into the draft, I think we're sitting at the number 6 pick, maybe with the Rams, and then depending on what happens with ours. So obviously, there's a lot of opportunity. I mean, we could essentially even trade that pick.
That was the first question I wanted to ask you guys. Just like a real quick yes or no. Are we picking 6th or no?
I feel like there's so much more. My personal, you have to go defense, and I don't feel like. I mean, maybe I was looking at like Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State, cornerback. I don't know necessarily. Maybe that's a reach at 6. I think you can trade that pick and still get a lot of value in return, and still really hit a home run in the draft. So I would be okay with trading that pick.
Yeah, I've seen some mocks get us the cornerback from Georgia, Ringo, and I don't know if he should go top like 8. Because some mocks have him like in the teens too. So I do think you could trade back. But I also saw, I don't know if you guys saw the quote, I think it came out today from Brad Holmes that said, we're confident in Goff, so we're not drafting a quarterback, number 6.
Yeah.
And my first thought seeing that was like, I would kind of keep that kind of stuff quiet because you want teams to remain uncertain on what you're going to do. But I mean, I trust Brad Holmes, so it's not like he's an idiot or anything. But I would definitely go cornerback with the first pick because I think it's the weakest part of the team. And so, like you said, Porter, Penn State, Ringo from Georgia, and I just don't know if you need to stay at 6 to get that guy.
That's kind of I kind of feel the same way. So, but boys, before we move on, we get Zach's Red Wings update. Any Lions talk you guys want to talk about before we get out here? Before we put the Lions to bed, unfortunately for the season. Anything you guys want to talk about, we'll do a roundtable at the end on anything, but Zach, anything, CJ, anything that we didn't touch on?
I shared with CJ. I don't know if you saw this, Mike, but they don't have like the schedule obviously set for next year, but they know who they're playing home and they know who they're playing away, and the away schedule is pretty tough for Detroit next year. I think off the top of my head, obviously we play Green Bay away, and Chicago away. So those are outdoor games. Tampa's away. And there were some other tough teams. I think the Chargers were in there. And
five believe.
I'm sorry, you were clicking in and out. I didn't hear you. You said what?
I think it's 5 outdoor games total.
5, yeah, okay, 5 outdoor games. So I don't know. I wanted to see.
City.
Oh, that's right. The Chiefs were on there too. Chiefs, Chargers, Buccaneers. Well, the Chargers I don't think is outside, but anyways, I wanted to see if you guys had a way too early record for next year for the Lions.
Yeah, let me look at that again.
I think I'm still just excited we ended up what we did this year, but I think anything below 9 wins is going to be a failure at this point. I think you gotta have 10, 11 wins this upcoming season. Yeah, I mean, you're competing with the Vikings. I mean, granted, Chicago, those divisional games are always tough. And Zach, we've always talked about the difference between those road games, those outdoor road games as opposed to the turf. So I think I feel like the early part of this season we were banged up, but I think we got healthy throughout the season outside of the season-ending injuries. So I would say successful season, 10, 11 wins, and you make the playoffs. I'm not saying we have to go deep in the playoffs, still building, but I think 10, 11 wins.
Yeah, I would say I think because this year we went 5-1 against the division. I think you got to at least match that record next year, 5-1, and I think they can. And then the other NFC division we play is the NFC South. And honestly, that's the Bucks, Saints, Panthers, Falcons. I think the Lions could sweep that division, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially depending on what happens with Tampa Bay.
Yeah, so that's 9 wins right there if you just do that. So I would say anywhere between 8 and 11 wins would be my expectation.
Zach, what's your take? Don't you gonna give me the 3 and the 3 and 14 or whatever?
No, man, I'm off the same old lines. Okay, I'm just gonna say 9 and 8 again. I think the team will be better, but I think the schedule's a little tougher than it was this year. So, 5-1 in the division and then 4-0 against the NFC South is very doable. I think it's a pretty lofty goal, but very doable. And the home schedule is not nearly as hard as the away schedule. I think we got like the Broncos and the Panthers at home. I think the Falcons might be at home too.
You think 9 and 8 gets you in the playoffs?
That's what I was gonna say. Is it has to be, if it's not 9 and 8 next year, then it has to be like playoffs. Is to me, even if it's wild card, the goal next year is playoffs. If 9 and 8 gets you in the playoffs, I'm okay with that. If it's got to be 10 and 7, then it's got to be 10 and 7.
I think because the Vikings, we've all seen the numbers. Like their point differential is horrible this year.
Horrible.
It's really. I think they come down to earth next season and probably have a record closer to 9 and 8, 10 and 7. So I think if you're right around there, you could be competing for the division at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, outside of Hawk and Jefferson, that team's getting old.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, great overall season. I think a lot to be excited about. I think based off the beginning of the season until now, expectations were met for a lot of people. I didn't expect playoffs. It was great to have that suspense, especially come down to the very last game of the season. I feel like everything that happened the last week of football based around the Detroit Lions is like you couldn't script this any better. I mean, it didn't necessarily go our way, but like you said, that Rams Seattle game was probably like watching an old Lions game. It was just like you just wanted to bang your head against the wall. So,
and I didn't even consider because I napped through that game. I woke up and overtime was starting, but I didn't even consider the fact that if that would have finished in a tie, then the Lions would have been in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, it kind of would have screwed them all. I thought about that too. So,
yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, I think they were 3 minutes away from a tie or something like that. So.
Can you imagine? Oh my god!
But anyways, enough with the Lions talk. We'll get to Zach's Wings update. Zach, you got a little news on the Red Wings?
Playing tonight, up 5-3 at the end of the second as we speak. Getting healthy finally, which is good. Bertuzzi's back. I think Zadina's gonna be back very shortly. Obviously, we saw Verona come back, but he got waived down to Grand Rapids. We talked about that last episode. So it's at this point, it's going to be, obviously getting healthy is exciting, but just because we're getting healthy doesn't mean we're the best roster in the league. So there's going to be a lot of jumbling around. Soderblom, the big giant monster that I love talking about, he got sent down to the Griffins. So with people coming back healthy, there's just going to be a lot of line jumbling because now it's up to Gru, the Penguin, Derek Lalonde, head coach himself, to just figure out which lineup's going to win him the most games. And so you're going to see a lot of people getting scratched. I think Ernie was scratched tonight. I'm sure Verona will come back up at some point when he's done with his conditioning stint, and this could be jumbling around again. So it'll just be interesting to see how they adapt now. I'm just glad we're in the mix as opposed to, having to climb our way out of the bottom. So we're giving ourselves a fighting chance.
Yeah. And it's funny you talk about coaching, like now, I mean, the team, by no means, he's setting these lineups. He's seeing what works. But now that he's getting his players back, again, you're kind of back to the drawing board. So it's like coaching and stuff. But it's funny because we don't talk a lot of Pistons, but I always keep an eye on the Pistons. Yeah, obviously they're young. They're definitely underperforming, even being young. And Dwayne Casey came out the other night and just said it's just not working. So basically, he just can't find the lineups. He can't find the different, granted, Cade Cunningham's out, and not to switch to basketball, but it's just funny. And I've seen some different comments where they just said, no, you're not working. Basically, I think the Dwayne Casey train has run its course with the Pistons. So it's nice to see the Wings with their young lineup. I feel like the Wings are doing more with their lineup, obviously, than the Pistons. The Pistons are not expected to do a lot, and I don't think they're necessarily expected to do a lot. but I feel like they're doing a lot more with their young lineup while people are banged up. And like you said, now they're getting guys back. Now it comes to the coaching to really plug and play these guys and see what works best for them.
Yeah, I saw that the Pistons were shaking up their starting lineup. You know, Duran was coming off the bench, and I thought he deserved a starting spot, and he got that finally. So, I don't know. And they beat the Warriors twice, bro. Defending champs. We beat the defending champs twice.
I would say, yeah, of the wins, and again, probably the one Detroit sports teams that we talk about least is the Pistons. But it's funny, the wins that they did, rip off, it was against the Warriors and some other teams. But yeah, as far as the wings, we always go back and forth. The Wings, Pistons, Lions, because they're all younger teams. Which franchise really really stand out. But I feel like, again, I think we mentioned it every episode. As long as you got Stevie Y on your side, that's kind of like ace in your pocket to run with.
Yeah, for sure.
CJ, you much of a hockey guy, or is that your brother's takes?
I am. I definitely don't watch as many games as he does. I mostly just follow the standings.
What's I always ask him, with the standings, I mean, are you a Wings guy though?
Oh yeah, definitely.
If you had to take a team, so basically, with the little that you've seen this year, the roster, the standings and stuff like that, do you feel like this team has overachieved currently, or kind of been where you think that?
I guess I would say, I don't know what my expectations were. I thought better than last year. They're going to be better than last year, record-wise. But I would say slightly underachieved, so, especially right now, the way they're playing. But it looks like they're going to end the losing streak, hopefully, tonight. Yeah, and I remember on one of your guys' early episodes, Zach mentioned something about goalkeeping being an issue to keep an eye on for the Wings. So I've kind of been following that to see if they can figure that out. But yeah, I was kind of hoping for like a fringe playoff contention at the end of the season for the Wings to be able to follow that. I don't know where they're at things, but I know they've playing.
Yeah, I think they're a little off pace. I think they are sitting right outside the wild card, but they're a few points back. They need to get a lot of games, or they need to put forth a win streak at least.
Yeah, 7 spot.
There you go.
What? Sorry. Yeah, you clicked in and out there. I don't know what's going on with your microphone, but
me.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that it looks like they're 7 points out of a playoff spot, and I'm just hoping by the end they're competing for that spot.
Yeah.
And like you said, Zach, in previous episodes, the fact that we're even in that position is because when we're in overtime, we're picking up. We've had more overtime games. We pick up a point there, so it's kind of like.
Yeah, we don't win much, but when we lose, it's in overtime. So
yeah. So, but anyways, we always give a quick Wings update. But transitioning before we get to our roundtable, we definitely got to mention the national championship, guys. I told Zach, I said I watched about 2 drives and turned the thing off, and then I didn't check the score until today, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. Zach, CJ, Zach, I'll go to you. What? And I know you said you turned it off too, or you didn't even tune in.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Was seeing the final score, or was that what you expected, or did you think TCU would hang around a little more? I think there was even though TCU in a lot of scenarios was an underdog, I saw there was a poll. I don't know if ESPN or Sports Illustrated did it. That TCU was 57% favorite.
Yeah. Well, I think 50% of the public picked them to win, but I think Georgia went in as 14-point favorites. So, that was not what I expected. I mean, that's the result I expected, but I didn't expect it to be like that. And I'll keep my piece short because I know both of you guys actually had dogs in this fight with Ohio State, Michigan, and I blame this on them. I blame more of it on Michigan because it should have been Michigan, Georgia, but it even could have been Michigan, Ohio State, or at least Ohio State and TCU. So it's one of y'all's fault, is all I'm saying.
Literally any other scenario concerning the matchups would have been better.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like both Ohio State and Michigan, I think Ohio State played Georgia out of their mind. Like I said, CJ Stroud had probably one of the best games his career. But I feel like you don't live and die by one play. But if you want to talk about one play, you can easily, as a Michigan fan, talk about that touchdown that never was. That completely changed the game.
Yeah.
That ended up in a fumble, changed the direction, essentially a 6-point swing. That's essentially what it was, and I feel like Michigan and Ohio State, both of their offenses could have handled Georgia. Well, I mean, you already saw Georgia, so basically it would have been Ohio State TCU, which I think anybody would have handed TCU, but I think even Michigan lined up against Georgia, it could have been. I feel like their running attack, which like I said last episode, their running attack is, I think, control the game, but they've really surprised me the past couple of weeks of really opening up with their passing game. So I think they had different avenues, but I think in effect of Georgia, your biggest strength is being able to keep the ball away from Georgia, where Michigan, I think they can just pound the ball with their running attack, which I didn't think TCU was going to be that bad, but wow. I mean, that was like, I can't tell you, like, since I've paid attention to sports, where I literally turned off a championship game and just could not care less about it.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe the rankings came out and they kept TCU at 2. I could not believe that.
Like, I thought, did they?
I at least what I saw today, yeah, it had Georgia 1,
Okay.
TCU 2, Michigan 3, Ohio State 4, which
yeah.
I don't know how in the world you put TCU ahead of Ohio State after they both just played Georgia back to back, and
Right.
it made no sense to me. But
I don't know how a team can lose by 50 and then they stay at number 2.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they stay anywhere, no matter what their ranking is.
Yeah, definitely should have been behind Ohio State.
So, and this is like how ignorant I've been. I know they've been talking about obviously switching this to 12 teams. And obviously the conference alignments will change soon, but I think a lot of those conference alignments change in 2024, especially the Big Ten with USC and UCLA coming. When does like I said, I'm not even being stupid. Does it switch to 12 next year or 2 years?
I believe it's the following season, so it's not next year, but
that's what I thought. So everything comes.
I have no idea.
So basically, I mean, you're talking a 12 team race. I mean, obviously you're going to have those teams in it, but you're not going to have the matchups where, it's going to be right off the rip Ohio State, Georgia, or TCU, USC. You're going to, Michigan. I'm sorry. So I think this is probably, outside of the championship game, this is probably the best college football playoff we've ever had. This is probably the one time that the committee can be like, okay, we feel good about it. But I feel like every time that they can really take a step forward, they take 2 steps back, because you look at this national championship game, like, what the hell just happened? Like, I don't even know. I would love to see what the viewership is on that. But, you got a 26-year-old quarterback out there, which, age doesn't really matter. But essentially the dude he walks on to Georgia. Then he leaves to go to JUCO. Then he comes back to Georgia and basically breaks every record in Georgia, which you're talking Stetson Bennett, like a dude that's probably never going to sniff the NFL, maybe a practice squad, and he's got all these SEC records, and then you've got who's their that little white receiver, 84, that I saw a thing that Bill Belichick was just licking his lips for Stetson Bennett and this little white receiver. Yeah, no, Bowers is the tight end.
No, it's McConkey.
Oh yeah, They're just like these dudes that don't fit on any roster, but they're gonna go to New England and just light up the world.
Yeah,
I don't know. It was hard to watch. Ohio State, being an Ohio State guy in Michigan, I rooted for Michigan. I wanted the best for the Big Ten, but they definitely got hosed. I'm not gonna say Ohio State necessarily got hosed. There's a few different things, but I feel like Ohio State played Georgia good, but that championship game was nowhere near what we expect. So I guess hopefully, foreshadowing, at least for the NFL, the Super Bowl will be good, and kind of flipping scripts again before we get into this roundtable here. Quickly, I'm just throwing this out there. Have you guys thought about the Super Bowl this year? Do you guys have 2 teams that you think are going to be in the Super Bowl? CJ, you got 2 teams?
Yeah. So I think the Chiefs are going to win it all.
Really?
I'm not rooting for them. I'm not rooting against them, but I do think, I think and I hope they play Buffalo again because that was epic last year when they played. I would pick the Chiefs to go from the AFC, and then from the NFC, I'd probably pick the Niners right now.
Niners are rolling. Zach, you got I know you don't necessarily have a dog in the fight, but you got two teams.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, man, if you want to talk technically, I got 3 dogs in the fight, okay? Because Jacksonville, Tampa, and Miami are all in. But I'm also going to say San Fran from the NFC. And actually, the Niners are my Super Bowl pick. And I don't really care if it's Chiefs or Bills. I just hope it's one of those two. But then I hope the Niners win.
You got 3 dogs in the fight, and you just cut them all out.
Yeah. I'm not giving any of them a win. Just put that on record.
Yeah, I would have to. It's kind of funny with Kansas City. You think with Tyreek Hill leaving that offense is supposed to take a step back, and they just continue to thrive. I definitely want to see that too. The Bills, KC. I think what San Francisco is doing is unbelievable with Brock Purdy. I had George Kittle all season in fantasy, and until Brock Purdy started, he was really not even relevant, and now he's lighting up the world, and it doesn't matter. Yeah. But good for that team. It'll be interesting to see. Okay, so quickly, Brock Purdy, say he runs the table. The dude runs the table. He doesn't. At this point, he can't lose a start. He can lose a start, but if he runs the table all the way through the Super Bowl, they win the Super Bowl. You got Jimmy G. I don't know what he signed. Maybe he was signed another year. You got Trey Lance, and you got Brock Purdy. The dude goes and wins the Super Bowl. Is there a quarterback controversy there, or is that like a Kyle Shanahan type deal thing where, you don't have to worry about it? It's just he won us a Super Bowl, no big deal. Trey Lance, next man up.
I think as soon as Jimmy G went down for the season, I think that was his last game in San Francisco. Really? I just think they're done with his injuries because it's happened so often there. That's just my take. And then the Trey Lance Brock Purdy thing was given because Brock Purdy hasn't lost, and they really haven't played in a close game outside of that overtime game last week. If he goes to the Super Bowl, that seems like such an unprecedented situation given the fact that they gave up so much for Trey Lance, and he hasn't really played outside of maybe 2 games. Yeah, I don't know what they would do there. If I was a fan, I would just want them to keep Purdy and keep that momentum because you don't really know what Lance is. But I don't know what they would do.
They say the dude, he's just like a little dude. He just like demands like respect. He goes in the huddle and they just like look at him and they're just like, you would think this dude's like a 17-year vet, like the way he commands the locker room and stuff. So, yeah. So Zach, you feel kind of the same way, or, can you see a quarterback controversy there? And then I'm going to ask you, I'm going to double load you here. I'm going to ask you about San Francisco and then who's quarterback for Tampa Bay next year? We'll go. Give me San Francisco first.
Okay, so first, San Francisco. If Purdy runs the table, wins the Super Bowl, I think because of what CJ alluded to, they gave up so much from. I think you stick with Lance as your guy, like going into next season. I think you do everything you can to keep Purdy in your back pocket. You cut ties with Jimmy G, but it's such a good offense that I think that you just because look, granted, Jared Goff didn't win a Super Bowl, but he went to the Super Bowl and then was nothing basically after that. And now, obviously, one man's trash, another man's treasure. We love him here, and that's cool. But just because you go on that run to the Super Bowl, I don't think that anoints you. I think you still go with your guy into next season, and you just try and keep Purdy close if you can.
What do you think? What do you think Purdy's making? Like Mr. Irrelevant? You think he's making like $500K?
Yeah, I don't even want to know. I'm sure I could look it up. It would take me 3 hours, but. Tampa Bay.
Excuse me. Tampa Bay. What's your take on Tampa Bay?
My worst nightmare would be Aaron Rodgers being quarterback in Tampa Bay.
Oh my god!
But I'm gonna give Tom another year. I think as much as I kind of like, I don't want him here anymore. It's kind of overshadowing the Buccaneers, and it's kind of hard to be in on the Buccaneers because of Tom Brady and his drama, but I think he's gonna stay here for another year just because he wants to, and I think he likes living in Florida. I don't know where he would go unless he obviously he's not gonna go to San Francisco.
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah, maybe we're talking about.
I know he's a Cali boy, but yeah, I don't know.
But I hear some rumblings too about Sean Payton and Tom trying to link up again, and there's some maybe in Tampa Bay, depending on what happens. Obviously, Tampa Bay still in the thick of things, but I know New Orleans still owns his rights, and they're looking for a first-round pick, it's crazy to me that you can essentially have a
I didn't know you could
coach
do that.
out of the NFL and still own the rights to him.
That's funny.
But anyways, enough about this season. We're going to put that behind us. Great season for the Lions. We still got our Wings, Pistons, moving forward, but really excited about the new season, obviously, or the season hasn't even ended, obviously, but definitely boom or bust at this point. There's a lot of expectations, but guys, going into our last segment here, kind of our roundtable. Everybody can bring a topic to the table. It can be anything sports related, anything life related, anything that any burning questions. But guys, I got to get this off my chest. I'm going to start because CJ, you kind of talked about it. Zach, you've mentioned it. The Detroit Lions cannot draft a quarterback. I mean, they can draft a quarterback late if they want. I am 100%. I am 110% on the Jared Goff bandwagon. We're riding this to the end. I think he finished the last 7 games of the season without an interception. You cannot do this. There's no reason. Again, we've got the most cap space. We've got some of the best potential draft picks coming up. There's no reason to burn. I talked about trading back, getting out of the number 6 spot. You got to go defense. You got to go secondary. You got to go linebacker. Even if you want to get a pass rusher again, load up on defense. We got plenty of money for free agency. Our offensive line, if they stay healthy, re-sign our wide receivers. It's going to be cheap. You cannot, and like you said, Holmes kind of mentioned it. You don't want to show that hand. I like the commitment to Goff. I'm a committed guy, but I am so sick and tired of this fan base, and I think it's definitely dumbed down. But that's my take. That's my little rant here. Jared Goff, I'm with you. 2023. You're my boy. You finished the season with the highest QBR in Detroit Lions. I think you tied Matthew Stafford to end the season. You had the most home touchdown passes. You basically this offense. You commanded this offense. So Jared Goff, I'm in your quarter. Defensive draft, give me it.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah,
I wasn't at the beginning of the season, but now I am, and I'll admit that.
I've totally shifted on Goff too. Just the last 10 games, like he's looked. I was looking at his stats, his career stats, and just in terms of quantity, it's not his best season, but in terms of efficiency, and I think the word I would use is this is the most mature he's looked in the league. Like he looks like a quarterback that can lead a team, and I just think the model should be, even when we had Stafford, and Stafford's my favorite line of all time. Even when we had him, I always said I would rather have a team around a quarterback than a quarterback, carrying a team. And look what the 49ers are doing. They have Mr. Irrelevant leading their team into the playoffs. And I think we can do that with Goff if you just load up the roster this offseason.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. And that's a perfect take right there. You go from a number one, which both number one draft picks, but I mean, a number one pick like Stafford that had Megatron and absolutely nothing. Got rid of Megatron. He still had a few good seasons, but now you got Goff, which is number one pick. Now you got one of the best offensive lines. You got probably one of the quietest receiving cores. You got 2 really, really good running backs. I feel like offensively, there's not much you need to do there. So
young defense, young defense that's going to grow, and that's good. Okay, I'll go next. This is something that I think CJ knows. This grinds my gears. I don't know if you know about this, Mike, but since we're approaching March Madness, and we're on to the NFL postseason, and after that, it's going to be all March Madness and the Masters and all that stuff. College basketball rankings are one of the most irrelevant things of all time. All time. I don't even know why they do it. I think it's so that they can hold these stats where they're like, most weeks at number 1 or most consecutive weeks at number 1, which really doesn't. It never matters. We get to the tournament. All you want is, some sort. I guess maybe they use it as some sort of. But even then, it's like, the top 25 are getting in a tournament. There's 60. Like you need to fill 40 other anyways, the rankings don't matter. Nobody rarely pays attention to them. I don't know why they do it. It's like Purdue lost. Number one, Purdue lost the other day to, it was like Rutgers or something. Like, it doesn't matter, just say they're the 12-1 Purdue Boilermakers. We don't need to know whether you think they're number one or number four. It doesn't matter in basketball.
Yeah, it's very fluid.
Yeah, I agree, because 30-game season, you can essentially, 2, 3, 4 wins, 4 losses, you can still be a number one seed, which, granted, that's a pretty good win percentage, but, you can lose those games early, drop down the rankings, work your way back up the ranks, come back up. It's just an ever-evolving cycle.
And none of it matters as long as you make the tournament, because everyone in the tournament has a chance to win. What they should do is they should just tell us when they're playing what place they're in their conference, and that's all I need to know. So,
There you go. Well, with that being said, this is your first round table here, CJ, with us. What is your what's on your mind? Like I said, it can be anything sports related. It can be anything just in general.
Yeah, so I want to ask every single Lions fan I know this question, and it's going into this offseason, but really the next, 365 days from now, and it's concerning DeAndre Swift, running back. Okay, I think we used an early second-round pick on him. He obviously has a lot of potential. He's very fast, got a lot of skill. Injury issues, but also sometimes the style of play I don't necessarily agree with. Like, I like the way Jamal Williams plays when he's on the field. Like, he runs forward. So my question is to both of you, because I think Swift could end up being the next Hawkinson within the next 365 days, kind of a shocking trade. And you can get some good draft picks, because I think a lot of teams around the league would love Swift. And I just think you can plug in another young running back with Jamal, assuming we re-sign Jamal. So I just want to know what you guys think about Swift over the next year from now.
Zach, this is funny, because we've always kind of been back and forth on this. And actually, when the Hawk trade happened, I think I even put a poll up about, would you rather have seen Hawk or Swift traded? And at the time, I was heavy on Swift. I was okay. That was, months and months ago when Swift was banged up, and I was just kind of over it. But you see when he's healthy, the potential. And I think if they have a guy like Jamal Williams, if they're committed to a guy like Jamal Williams that can run between the tackles, and then you can change your pace, Swift, and he's okay. Zach and I talked about this. If he's okay in the locker room, he doesn't have to be the guy. I think that's a guy I want on my team. I know he can demand a lot of draft capital, maybe per se, based off of what he can do. But I think I'm in the camp where I want to keep as long as we can keep these guys together. He's not. I don't think he's your primary running back. I think you can give him a lot of carries, a lot of touches, but I think he's got to be complimented. So that's where I'm at. As long as Williams is here, I'm all on Swift now.
Yeah, for me, the biggest if is Jamal Williams. If he pulls a big psych and decides to sign somewhere else, I think you're cornered into Swift. But I don't hate what you said, CJ, about not loving his style of play. I definitely prefer Jamal Williams' style of play. I just trust it more. And over the next 365 days, I would be okay with Swift going. I have a trust level of Brad Holmes at this point where I would at least have to see it through. I wouldn't automatically say, "What the hell are we doing?" So
right.
I don't know. I'm curious where you stand since you posed the question.
I think my main concern is how much money is he gonna? Because he has one more year on the contract, so he should be on the team next season unless they make some surprise move before then. My concern is just how much money is he going to ask for, and it was the same concern with Hawkinson, because those guys are drafted high, and that automatically goes into contract negotiations. And my belief is that they're gonna break the bank for Jamal. Not literally, he's not going to become the highest paid running back or anything, but they're going to offer him whatever they want because they know how valuable he is. That's my belief. But Swift, my only concern is just how much money is he going to ask for? Because in reality, I think when we do offer that next contract to him, the numbers should be in line with like a number 2 running back or a guy who splits time. He's not a number 1 running back, and I just don't know if that's what he's going to ask for. So if it comes down to that, then I would be for trading him. But I do like what he provides to the team.
Yeah,
I agree. And like you said, Zach, I think Brad, like, you bring a guy in, you got to feel, are we hitting on these picks? You got Malcolm Rodriguez late, got rid of Swift, but basically, he's at the end of a deal where he's going to demand like probably some of the highest tight end money. As soon as we get rid of him, our tight ends they're playing well. They're setting the franchise record for touchdown catches. So I definitely got to buy into that. I think he knows what's right, but I definitely think as long as Swift can stay the type of person, because I don't know, because I feel like he's a pretty quiet guy. I don't know necessarily that I've ever heard anything bad about him, but as long as he can stay happy in the locker room, like you said, CJ, he's not going to be demanding a lot of money, even though we're going to have money. I think complimenting him with Jamal Williams, and I don't even think Jamal Williams is one of those guys that you're going to have to pay him a little bit of money, but I don't even think he's one of those guys that would come in and say, hey, you got to give me X, Y, and Z. I think he's just more, he wants to be here. He's excited. He's passionate about it. And if you can keep those guys together, if you don't have to touch the offense, I would be extremely happy because, we've still got guys like Quentin Cephas, which I'm not sure where I'm at on him because there's a lot of injuries. He kind of reminds me of like a Kennedy Galladay, except for he never really proved himself. Like I said, on the line we got Big V, which I'm okay with cutting ties because we had a lot of money in him. It'll be depending on what kind of cap hit he has because of all the injuries he had. I don't even think he played more than 4 or 5 games for us. But I feel like this receiving core is very, even with St. Brown, I feel like, even having over 100 catches, they're very unselfish. They don't care. They just want to win. And that's what I would see building on. I'm excited about the defense, but that's a great question because Zach and I have kind of been back and forth back on that. And early in the season, I was okay with Swift being gone, but now I'm kind of pretty steady because I look at the job at best like days where same situation, but they used him as a primary running back and we pretty much killed the guy. He couldn't take those hits. So if we can compliment him, I'm really excited. Looking at what that second, and I even think Jackson, he came in, took a role away from Craig Reynolds in the past season, did well. I think he played great. So, there's going to be a few players that maybe it's going to suck lose, but I think Swift's going to be around. And I really hope to see that. So it'll be interesting. But guys, I appreciate you guys jumping on. Motor City Realist. Zach and I threw this together after What's Up Belly Up. We're just Detroit guys. I shouldn't say Detroit guys. I'm not a Detroit guy. We're just Detroit sports fans. At least these guys are from Michigan. They got the ties there. I'm an Ohio kid, whatever. But CJ, man, I'm glad that you were able to jump on. Like I said, we talked about you having on or you coming on. We'll probably take a little break after this episode here, get back into things because I know Zach's not the biggest baseball guy in the world getting into that season, but we still got the Wings. But CJ, we'll definitely have to have you back on once we kick back off. But anything you guys want to end with, and then I'll take us out of here?
I just want to say I appreciate it because I love talking to Lions. I love talking to Lions with fellow Lions fans. So I appreciate being on.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for hopping on. Like Mike said, little hiatus here. I'm going through a move, so I gotta do that. But if the Wings are pushing down the stretch, we're gonna be back on here talking hockey going into the postseason, and like if once the NFL offseason heats up, we'll talk about the Lions moves and stuff like that. But till then, this is the last one for a little bit.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys. We'll take it out of here. Thanks on behalf of myself. It's Zach, Max, CJ. You guys, appreciate you jumping on. We'll see you guys soon. We'll keep you guys updated on the old Twitter account, but you guys have a good night. And like I said, we'll